more, finally. It's been months, maybe even longer, since I've made a video, but I decided it's time to start up again, especially with everything that's going on in the world. Um, I really feel like financial literacy and knowledge about how economies and finances work is more important now than ever. Um, we're going to enter an era soon where a lot of what we've taken for granted is going to go away. Um, we've had America and the West has had it good for quite a long time, pretty much I mean, America ever since we won World War II. Things have been, I mean, we had some shaky times in the 70s, and there's been some downturns like '08, but there's never been breadlines or a massive depression in most of our lifetimes. Pretty much anyone who's still alive today hasn't really experienced a depression. So I think it's very important for us to be more financially literate than the average person is. A lot of that's done on purpose. Um, they want us to be good little workers, and you know, the rich know that someone has to do the heavy lifting, and they don't want it to be them. And so you need people to need money, otherwise you'll have no supply of labor. Now, of course, this is kind of a false belief because, or ideology, because there's always going to be a supply of labor, even with strong economic fundamentals and philosophies, but nonetheless, part of our system is to keep people poor so that they need to work and so they need the government as well. A populace that's capable of being dependent, like independent and self-sufficient, isn't going to vote to increase the size of government, and there'll be a more free society, which is not what they want. Anyway, on to the video. Um, this is one of the, I'm going to talk about, I'll give an overview of one of the most important books I've read so far regarding financial literacy and what I know about wealth acquisition, preservation, and the long-term sustainability of, intergenerational wealth. A lot of the principles outlined in this book still apply today, even though the scenarios take place in Babylonia, which is one of the first civilizations ever. Um, Around 2000 to 5000 BC. People don't know the exact dates really, it's so long ago, but this is when some of the first concepts of wealth, currency, commerce came into play. Was Babylon and Babylonian. Babylon is the capital of Babylonia, an old, probably one of the first empires. Um, Most of their history took place even before Egypt. So here we go. Um, so, located in modern-day Iraq, Babylonia was one of the first major civilizations of the world, including some of the first examples of larger-scale commercial activity, like I was just talking about. A lot of the first early human settlements were around rivers. A lot of because you need the natural resources and the water. I mean, water is life. It's pretty much plain and simple. So all the early major cities and settlements you'll see are located along rivers. London's this way, and back in Babylonia, it wasn't any different. And everything was pretty much located around the two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Now, these rivers are almost gone today. I mean, you can look it up on Google Maps, um, but yeah, concepts such as property, money, merchants came into being for the first time here, and as a result, the results were not equal. Some rose to become the richest members of society, while the majority remained in poverty, despite their endless struggle to get out of that poverty. and left many people wondering, how, like, I'm willing to work hard. Just I feel like I work just as hard as the people who are rich, but why are my results so different? Why do how can I actually progress and acquire wealth instead of just grinding, you know, grinding my grinding and getting nowhere? And this book illustrates some of the basic tenets which drove the long-term success of, quote, the richest man in Babylon, named Arcad in this book. Title of the book is The Richest Man in Babylon, and it's named after a theoretical. No one, he probably didn't really exist, but it's written to illustrate an idea that, you know, one of the rulers back then, one of the kings, was very wise and benevolent, and decided to approach the king of Babylon and ask how he became so phenomenally wealthy, um, because he noticed that there was this wealth divide, this wealth gap in his society, and he knew that he wasn't an expert on, money. He was born into royalty. He didn't have to struggle, but he understood that this was a problem that needed to be addressed in his society, was the wealth inequality. So he decided to ask the richest man in Babylon if he would be willing to tutor, um, every people who are willing to be taught on the methods of wealth acquisition. And so, the king realized that if the individuals of his nation were wealthy, his nation would be wealthy. Um, if everyone learned how to take care of themselves, then no one, we wouldn't need to be taking care of each other so much, and it would be a more prosperous society, and resources wouldn't be as scarce. And some of the lessons that he taught these pupils that he had set up to teach, um, he basically wanted to teach them how to acquire money for one, how to keep that money they acquired, and how to make money from that money. And the last part is key, is if you don't know how to make money from money, you'll never be it's you'll never be like the fat guy on the right. Not that you want to be fat, but it's very crucial to learn how to make money from money, because if you don't know how to make money from money, you will be laboring for all of your money, and our bodies do not last forever. There's comes a time when you can no longer labor as hard, and it becomes crucial for your money to be working for you. And so the goal is passive income, which I'm sure many of you have heard about many times. And um, so the first part, though, is to keep money you've earned. And so a very important mantra that the author goes over in this book is a part of all I earn is mine to keep. And something intuitively that might not make much sense to you right off the bat, because you're like, wait, I all the money I make goes to myself, so that doesn't make any sense. Well, we spend a lot of our money paying our landlord, our grocer, our telecommunications company that provides us our phone service, a waiter in a restaurant that serves us our food, the cook at the restaurant who cooks us our food. We're spending all day hiring others to assist us with money that we probably shouldn't be affording to pay out. But a lot of the economy relies on us having these loose hands, so to speak. And um, so, a saying that will help motivate you to save money is every gold you save becomes a slave to work for you. If you if you labor and save $1,000 and you invest it wisely, then that money will be working for you forever, you know. And the money that brings in, you can then reinvest that money, and it becomes like a seed that you plant. And tree. It's like a tree, and a tree. It's like a Warren Buffett saying that a tree is only there because of the seed someone else planted a long time ago. And investing is the same way, you know. Um, but you always want to be aware that the gaming tables are always in favor of the game maker. You know, what's going to come to mind in the modern era with wealth a lot of the times is the stock market. Um, Real estate potentially too, but you need to realize that when you're playing in these games that the odds are always against you unless you could find a strategy that makes you more financially sound than the competition. Um, and it's very important to realize that if you are trying to make money through luck, then the book even illustrates that if a god exists, he's probably going to be more busy blessing the more noble endeavors than, just trying to make a quick buck at a game table. So just be aware that there are quick bucks to make out there with investing in the stock market, but you need to be aware that that is not the long-term strategy. And this book tries to get you away from that thinking, and to be aware that if you are involved in these get rich quick schemes, that you'll either A, lose your principal, or B, you will be successful, make the money, and you'll quickly lose the money because the principles at which got you the money are not sound, kind of like winning the lottery. So, um, a major theme of the book, about midway through, is he goes over 7 cures for a lean purse, and it's very, you can tell that like it hits the author to the core, the pain of poverty, the pain of want, and he's very passionate about fixing that for himself and others. Like, he's aware that poverty is one of the cruelest forms of violence out there and longest lasting forms of violence. And it's super crucial that ourselves and our descendants don't have to suffer that form of violence. And so he goes over cures of how we can avoid a lean purse or an empty wallet, so to speak. The first cure is to learn to live on less than you earn, even if you only put away 10%. The book stresses a lot, trying to always, at the minimum, put away 10% of your earnings. And something that the book talks about is that if you just manage to live off of 90% of your current income, it's a lot more doable than you would think. And at the end of 10 months of doing that, of putting away 10% of what you make, you'll have a month's salary put away. And that time passes quicker than you'd think. And a second cure is to seek value and advice from those who are competent in their fields of study. Um, the book makes an example that you basically don't want to go to, a bread maker on advice about how to make shields. We're talking, you know, almost prehistoric times here, but you get the point. Like, if someone's an expert on making bread, you don't go to them on advice on how to farm, necessarily. So if you need advice on how to make bread, you go to a bread maker. If you need advice on how to invest, you go to someone who's been successful at investing. Um, the third cure is to learn to make money work for you. And this has kind of been gone over already, but it's kind of just redundant because it had to be fit into these cures. The fourth cure is to guard your treasures from loss. It's losses create a scenario where, in order to recoup the losses, your gains actually have to be a lot greater than your losses. So it's very important to preserve your principal, to preserve your initial investment. And we must learn from mistakes and gain experience while our fortunes and incomes are smaller, or else how could we ever learn to manage larger fortunes? The book goes over that, your first investment, your first 5 investments, whatever it is, they'll probably go bad at first. They'll probably not work out. And that doesn't mean you did get disheartened, but you always want to take away either profits or a lesson from every investment you make. If it doesn't work out, you want to ask yourself why, and you want to assess what you've learned from that. Um, the fifth cure is to seek to own the home in which you reside so that the money on rent can be instead saved. Um, Cash flow is a huge part of wealth, and you need to be aware that lots of people spend huge percentage of their income on the roof over their head. And if you own the roof over your head, it reduces the income that you need in the first place substantially, especially with the monetary system we have, where housing values just go up and up and up and up and up, and therefore rents go up and up and up and up. You definitely want to eliminate that cash outflow permanently by owning the home you live in and work to make that a goal. The sixth cure is to ensure future income. A day will come when you are less able to earn. You know, we are in finite bodies. Our bodies will age and they'll get weak. And you need to plan future investments to plan to provide a future income, because we will not always be able to labor for income. So our capital needs to generate it. The seventh cure is to cultivate your own skill set and increase your ability to earn. This is the seed from which all the rest grows. So you could be the best investor in the world, but if you don't have access to wealth, then it's all for naught. So your initial source of income, which is your skill set, needs to be cultivated. This is the seed from which all else grows from. So an income source will always be more valuable than any investment you make. Increasing your monthly income, your annual income on a consistent basis will do more for your long-term wealth than any investment philosophies, because at the end of the day, your investments are, you're hoping to acquire wealth, passively. Now, labor is a more direct, more sure way of obtaining that income, and you'll notice that people who make larger incomes generally are the ones who prosper more, and it's not the ones who make Hail Mary investments that work out. So cultivate your skill set, which increases your regular income. This is very important. So that's about it. That's just a short, little introduction to the main concepts that are taught in The Richest Man in Babylon. I highly recommend the book. I'm sure you could find it on Amazon. Um, yeah, feel free to give me a like if you thought this was informative, and I'll try to keep doing more videos like this soon.